In today's episode of my podcast story, we have Maxwell Ivy, also known as the blind blogger. Maxwell is the host of the podcast, The Accessibility Advantage, where he passionately advocates for greater inclusion and accessibility for people with disabilities. With over 15 years of experience as a blind entrepreneur, Maxwell has transformed his own challenges into a powerful message, inspiring others to embrace their unique journeys. His story is not just about overcoming adversity. It's about empowering business owners to see the value in accessibility through communication and collaboration. He's here to share his inspiring journey on how he built his show from the ground up and how he's making a meaningful impact in the world. Tell us your name, your podcast, and what your podcast is about.
Okay, so my name is Maxwell Ivy, Max to my friends. Okay, and so I currently host two podcasts. One of them is called Hearsay Shorts. It's a 15 to 20 minute podcast. It's fairly heavily structured interview show focused on accessibility. It's hosted by a company called AudioEye, that's EYE, and they are a big player in the field of accessibility, digital accessibility through automation. And so I am a paid host for their podcast, and I interview people who are experts on accessibility and how it affects the business world. And then I host a podcast of my own called The Accessibility Advantage, where my goal is to advocate for more inclusion of people with disabilities through education, communication, and collaboration. And that people can find that at theaccessibilityadvantage.com. And then I have a podcast that I paused last year while I started the new work called What's Your Excuse?, which just today I recorded some new content for it. I hope to get some more interviews on that soon. And that's an inspirational podcast where I interview people who have overcome adversity or challenging life circumstances and have them share actionable advice as to how people can overcome the challenges that they are living with in their particular situation.
Oh, okay. Can you tell? Okay, you have three podcasts now. So the questions I'm going to ask will kind of apply to maybe two of them. Can you tell us the real reason you started the accessibility podcast and what's your excuse?
Right. So when I started What's Your Excuse, which has been going since 2016, I did not want to have a podcast. I started doing podcast interviews in 2013, and about once a month, the host would go, Max, you're a great guest. You're very knowledgeable. When are you going to have your own podcast? And I told him, I don't believe that I can handle the technology and have a conversation with somebody or record solo content. But if I ever found somebody who would take care of the tech stuff, then I might do it. And eventually a gentleman from Canada named Fred By showed up and he said, Max, I'll do all the tech stuff. You just have to talk. And we did that. Eventually he had some other stuff in his life. So he helped me get to where I could do the podcast by myself. But I really didn't plan on having that podcast. But once I did start it, the name was a work in progress. At first it was No Excuses. It was Leading You Out of the Darkness. And eventually people who follow me online said, Max, we think of you as a courageous person who takes on difficult challenges. And we have often said about you that if Max can do something, then what's my excuse? And so when you turn that around as the host, the idea of What's Your Excuse was just a natural name for the show. And so I've interviewed a lot of very inspirational people and had them share the techniques that they use in their life to overcome the stuff that they're going through. And then the more recent podcast, I started it because in the last 4 years, I noticed that the world is pushing me to share more of my knowledge and experience about digital accessibility and to help more business owners improve their accessibility so that they can leverage the disability community and the disability market. And so I realized that I love doing podcasts. And actually, it was Alex Sanfilippo and his very talented wife, Alicia, who are the owners of Podmatch, who encouraged me to transition and do a podcast about accessibility and share my knowledge and experience with the world in the way that I can, because I'm not a just facts and figures kind of person. I'm a storyteller. And so I'm enjoying educating people about how to make their websites, their blogs, their podcasts, etc., more accessible so that they can reach people with disabilities like me, but also so they can make it more enjoyable for people who don't have a disability.
Yeah, I'm curious. How did you get that? How did you? Okay, what's the question? Can you tell us the story of how you kind of got your paid host position for the AudioEye podcast?
That's actually a funny story because of about 3, maybe 4 years ago now, I replied to a connection on LinkedIn. I don't always have the time to do it, but when I do, I like to send short notes to thank people for connecting with me and mention something about their profile. And the people at AudioEye responded and they said, Max, we think you'd be good for a job we're wanting to fill. And I said, okay, I'll look at it. And they sent over the link on LinkedIn with the about information. And I read it, and about half of it I was qualified for, and about half of it wasn't, because I'm not a Windows user, not a Microsoft user. And they needed somebody who could use several different kinds of software that I don't use. And at that time, I didn't even have a Windows computer with speech in my house. So I told them, I said, I don't think I'm qualified for this, but I would love to support the eventual hire on a contract basis because I am an expert in accessibility. And they said, well, Max, we need you to fill out an application so that we'll have your information in our system, because the way businesses like us work, we cannot talk to somebody without having their information in our system. So I put together a resume because I hadn't had a resume in probably 20 years. It was very simple. It's still very simple. And I submitted I used the easy apply thing on LinkedIn. And less than 30 minutes later, I got an email back saying, Mr. Ivy, we appreciate your interest in this position, but you're just not qualified for it. And of course, I got a good laugh over that. And I was invited to schedule an interview. And each time I had an interview, we laughed about that because I told them I wasn't qualified. They told me to apply, and it turned out I wasn't qualified. And I had 4 interviews, including one with the COO, and he got a good laugh out of it too. So I finally started working for them as a writer. They wanted me to use my storytelling to help people better understand accessibility, because they had seen that I talk about accessibility from a positive viewpoint, focusing on the benefits, why a business owner should care about people with disabilities. And so I started as a writer for their blog, and then they invited me to do some website evaluations. And then last year, they realized that I enjoy content creation more than I enjoy doing site evaluations. And they said, Max, we want to get you doing the stuff that you enjoy doing, that makes your heart glad to do. So they had a podcast already called Hearsay, which is about a 40 to 45 minute show. And they said, we're going to start another one. It's called Hearsay Shorts. It's going to be really, tight, 15, 20 minutes. And we'll do everything. And they bought me new equipment. They have recruited the guests, written the questions. They handle the editing. They do the social media stuff. They even get online with me in advance to make sure that all my stuff is working the way it's supposed to be working. It's really cool having a team to do all of that stuff for you. But then it's also really cool when I go away from Hearsay Shorts and go back to my own podcast, where I get to make the decisions, and I don't have those delays between this is what I think we should do and having the members of the team decide amongst themselves where they think we should go next with a particular guest or set of questions or whatever. But it started because I sent a thank you note and continued to do work for them and built relationships with the people who run the company. And when they saw a need that was in alignment with my skills, they offered me that work, and I started doing it. So now I have the work as a writer and a podcaster for them. And just last month, they paid for me to travel to California to speak at the CSUN Adaptive Technology Conference. It's the California State University Northridge. My topic was 40 years of adaptive technology. What does the future hold? And it was a good talk for me because I've lived through so many of the changes in technology for people with disabilities, especially people with vision loss. And so they helped me submit my proposal to the conference. They helped me arrange my transportation. They rehearsed with me. They were there to run the slide projector for me, so I didn't have to worry about that while I was talking. So it's been a really good relationship between me and them. And now what I'm hoping is that I can find some other companies that I can do the same for, that I can help them on accessibility, that I can educate their team, that I can create content either to educate or to promote the investments a company is making. And so I've been happy to be able to do that for Podmatch and also for Less Annoying CRM, which is a content relationship management option that is accessible. So
Yeah.
don't underestimate being nice on the internet is all I can tell you.
Yeah. Like, yeah, it's quite interesting what a genuine, human to human interaction could lead to.
Yes. Yeah. And I guess it shouldn't be a surprise because there's so little real human connection in social media that when you make the effort to do it, it just stands out.
Yeah. That's really, really true. A lot of the interactions on the internet, most of them, sometimes you wonder if you're interacting with a robot.
Yeah, that is so true. Yes, you wonder if there's any real people still left on the other side of the screen some of the time.
Yeah. And then when you see one, you're like, oh wow, it's nice. I've nearly forgotten what it felt like to connect with a human. Oh,
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
yeah. Of the three podcasts, which one would you say is like the oldest or kind of like the first love?
What's Your Excuse is the oldest. It's my first love because even now it's the one where I learned to be a podcaster. It's where I honed my interview skills as a host.
Yeah.
I knew I'd get a reaction out of you for that,
Yeah. The funny thing now is you stopped the what's your excuse? Why? So the question I want to ask you is what's your excuse?
Oh, yes. Okay. We're gonna discuss this because I live with this. All right. I didn't start the whole what's your excuse thing. People online started it. I was just stupid enough to agree with them and use it myself. And now I have to live with people using it against me. So what's your excuse? I don't really have an excuse for not creating new content for what's your excuse. Just today, I recorded an episode about getting in your reps where I talked about how whether it's your outreach for your business or a craft or writing or speaking or singing, whatever it is, you have to put in those reps. And I use some examples from my recent experience around singing and songwriting, and especially singing in public, and especially sharing my own original songs. So I created a solo piece. I've got a couple of interviews scheduled. I feel like I'm almost there where I can juggle three different balls. What's your excuse? Hearsay shorts and the accessibility advantage. So it's still something that I may have those months where maybe one of them isn't as consistent as I would like it to be. But I agree with you. There's really no reason other than I decided, and this is one of the things about being able to do a lot of things. In my time online, starting in 2007, I've had to discover many things that I'm capable of doing. I have a lot of what are called competencies. Many people have a lot of competencies. I only have a few geniuses. So sometimes I've let things that I'm good at get in the way of things that I'm great at. And so one of the things I've had to learn how to do is to decide what serves Max now, what doesn't serve Max. So, and what are some things that just Max has no interest in ever doing because of the risk to his personal safety. So, as far as let's do the safe ones first. So like things that I can do that I want to do, but that I currently am not doing because they're not serving my purpose right this minute, for example, is writing the next book. I've written 4 books, 2 of them have won awards. However, the return on the investment for the book has has not been there. The amount of time and money I have to spend to publish is a challenge because
Yeah.
the process online for self-publishing as a blind person is not accessible. So I end up having to hire people to do things like editing, formatting, cover art creation, promotion that other self-published authors just do themselves. So
Yeah.
it's an expensive process. So right now, publishing that next book is not there. It's probably down to 6th or 7th or 8th on my list of priorities. Now, another thing that I enjoy doing, but I've decided I can only do it for fun. I can't be serious about it and spend a lot of time with it. I only do it to distract myself and also to create content that I can use for my podcast or when I'm doing public speaking. And that is the singing and the writing original songs. That's not going to make me a living. I'm never going to be Garth Brooks or Randy Travis or George Strait. You know, I'm Max Ivy. I got a good voice. I'm a great storyteller, and people love my songs as much for the courage to sing them a cappella as they do for the quality of the song. But I can't do a lot of that because there's no financial return on it. So it's maybe 4th or 5th on my list. The things that are at the top of my list are all about accessibility. They are paid writing, speaking, consulting, podcasting. You know, those are my top 4. And those are and focusing on a particular subject matter within those top 4. And then everything else are things that I can do, I want to do, I will do again at some point, but they are not at the top of my list because I have to do what serves Max the best in this time. And that's one of the things. I've gone from not thinking I could do anything to challenging myself to do something because I didn't have a choice, to finding out that I'm good at a lot of different things, and then having to get to the point where I have to tell myself no or not now and focus on the most important things. So that's the safe part of what's your excuse. And for those listening, there's nothing wrong with deciding something does not serve your purposes as long as you're doing it from a place of love and not a place of fear. So that's the safe stuff. Now, the scary stuff, these are things that I have no interest in doing because basically I like living too much, and I'm not one of those crazy blind people that enjoys doing stuff just because I'm not supposed to or other people have done it. So you will never find me wanting to skydive, bungee jump, whitewater raft at any location where the rapids might kill me. I have no interest in swimming with sharks. I have no interest in rappelling down the sides of buildings or waterfalls. You know, I have no interest in doing things that could harm me physically because if I'm not around, I can't encourage and inspire people. So those are, and one that's kind of in between there's 2 that are kind of in between. One is a foreign language. And I was challenged, and somebody used the "what's your excuse" thing about me with the foreign language. I said, no, I've never been able to learn a language before, and it's just not something that I need right now that would serve me right. The other one is learning to play guitar. It would be really fun if I could record my own music with an instrument behind me. It would also be really fun to play and sing my own walk-up music at a speaking event. That would be really cool. Or to play my own music on the intro to my podcast with the guitar. But it's one of those things, the time it would take for me to do it and to learn it at my age, I just turned 59 this week. It's just not something that can't be in the top 5 of the list of things I'm focused on. So I hope that helps people understand, because one of the things we don't teach people in this world, whether we're talking about coaches or business schools, we don't teach people how to say no to themselves or to others.
Yeah, yes, so true. Oh, okay. You stopped What's Your Excuse? How long did you stop publishing on that podcast?
How long did I what?
How long has it been since you last published on What's Your Excuse podcast?
I think it's been about a year. It's been too long. You know, there's another thing that people who are sole entrepreneurs have to be careful of, and this is giving more effort to work you are getting paid for than the work that you need to build your own business. And I have been guilty of that
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
I have a contract. I write an article once a month called Barrier Free Bites for PHP Architect Magazine. I was writing for Reviewed Magazine. I write about
Yeah.
once every 6 weeks for, and these are paid writing gigs. So between the paid writing and the paid podcasting, I have, you know, let my own stuff go. And that's not good because even if we have income we have to be building our own brand. We have to be building our own
Yeah.
platform. We have to be creating the content because that's how we connect and stay connected with people. So I'm willing to admit that I'm guilty, that I have spent more time building somebody else's house than building my own, but I'm working on it. And
Yeah.
I feel like people need to be kinder to themselves about it once they realize it and not beat themselves up as they try to plan a way to spend more time on their own work.
Yeah, like that's so true. I mean, it's easier to do stuff for boss rather than doing it for ourselves. And I think the greater fulfillment comes when we keep the promises we've made to ourselves.
That is true. That is very true. I I find myself sometimes feeling more obligated to the other person than to myself. And
Yeah,
so one of the things I'm trying to do is I'm trying to value myself more. I'm trying to think when you have a podcast, you basically tell people that there's going to be content every so often, and you have an obligation to your listeners just as much as you have an obligation to those people who pay you.
yeah. That's very true. Because I've had people who they exactly the same position. They create content for a company, and of course, sometimes people are busy, but we know, like when I have a conversation with these persons, I know that this is not a matter of, oh, they are really busy. Like, it's a matter of uh and well, if I don't do it, it's my stuff now. Nothing is going to happen. You understand? Unlike if you have a job and you don't deliver, you don't show up, you'll be questioned. You'll be brought in for questioning. You have to some explain to do what's going on. Hope you're good, and then you're like, yeah, I'm good. I'm doing well health wise. Everything is okay. So why are you not creating content? Why are you not doing the stuff you're supposed to be doing? I don't just feel like doing it. The boss and everybody is just going to look at you and like, what? Are you sure you're okay? Or are you sure you don't need to see a doctor? This guy is losing it.
Yes, yeah, and and it may not be a medical doctor. Would you like to see a therapist or
That's what I'm talking
a?
about, the therapist. But I just didn't want to go straight to that point. I was just painting it in a way. I'm talking. Yeah,
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 yeah, it is funny the way that happens is that a lot of us we really have to work to think of our own work and value it just as much as the work we're getting paid for. Because it is easy to think, well, I've got a job and they're sending me money and I'm using that money to support my family. And if I stop going into work and stop fulfilling my obligation and stop meeting their expectations, they will stop paying me, or they will, like you said, at the very least, they will bring you in and ask you questions and try to find out if there's some way they can help you go back to being the employee that you were a week or a month before that. So yeah, it is very challenging. And it is a mindset thing, and it's the way we are trained as people, growing up in the world, that the important thing is to have a job, to have a career, to have reliable, sustainable income, and to do whatever you can to make sure that income continues to be reliable. So yeah, it can be very hard to focus on your own work because, like you say, you who am I hurting if I don't show up in my own work? But
yeah. Like,
yeah,
I mean, it's so big of a deal. And you were giving an example, but about losing the job. For me, most of the content creators that have a job, right? It's not necessarily a question of, oh, if I focus on my thing, I'm going to lose this other thing. Like, they're doing their job and they're doing it excellently well. But it's just that, I mean, they have the resources, they have the time, they have all the physical stuff that they necessarily need to create the content or work on their own stuff. But it's just a matter of when it comes to the time to do that thing, they just don't feel like doing it. They just don't. Like, it becomes something that they overthink. It's not like a job where you show up, even though you're not exactly feeling like and I'm not talking about, I'm not feeling healthy. No, that's not the kind of feeling I'm talking about. I'm talking about, I just feel like I should relax and, sleep for an extra 3 hours.
I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
If you get up when it's time to go to your work, whether that's in person or virtual, and you don't feel good, you're going to make yourself go because
Yeah.
you have that expectation. But if when it comes to your own work, if you wake up and you don't feel like doing it, it's a lot easier to just say, I'm just not going to do it.
Yeah. And I mean, you're the shot caller, you're the boss. If the boss says, let's not do it. It's not a big deal. Like, everybody will just say, okay, boss said we shouldn't do it. And I think that's one of the things that most persons don't see, that we're the boss of ourselves. I mean, we don't really have the people working for us, but we have to like be a good employee of our own company first before we even expect other persons to be good employees.
It's a great way of putting it. That's kind of like when you talk about relationships and they say that you have to be a good friend before you can make friendships, or you have to love yourself before you can be in a loving relationship. And what you just said about work, especially our own personal work as sole entrepreneurs and creators, is exactly the same thing. We have to be the boss and recognize the importance of doing our own work if we're going to do work for anybody else.
Yeah. That's so true. When is what's your excuse coming back?
Well, like I said, I recorded a video this afternoon. I'm going to run it through Descript and do some minor editing. So I'm thinking the 1st of May, or the first Monday in May, because that podcast has always come out on Mondays.
Okay.
So
Okay.
that's what I'm looking at.
I'm curious, right? And it's a good thing that you're someone who, how do I put it now? You're kind of positioned in a place where you're both an expert in accessibility and you're both someone who uses the products of accessibility. I don't know if you understand what I'm saying.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying.
Yeah. So I have a question. I'm curious. You talked about Descript. Are you the one to do the editing? And how accessible is Descript for you?
Okay. Descript is accessible when it comes to navigating their website, or mostly accessible. It's mostly accessible when you import your files to their website so that it can transcribe them, and then you edit the video or audio by editing the text, for people who are not familiar with Descript, which in principle is a great idea for people with disabilities, especially vision loss, because then I don't have to play around with sliders and bars on the screen that tell me, how good the audio is or whatever. I can just edit the text. Now, but when it comes to actually navigating the text, it has some issues. It is unstable, and it's difficult with a screen reader, whether I'm using Windows or Mac. It's difficult with my screen reader to select the text I want to delete the first time. I can eventually do it, but it takes multiple attempts, and often I end up having to delete smaller pieces of text at a time than I want to, that, smaller amounts of text, say like deleting a couple of words instead of deleting a entire sentence or most of a sentence like I would prefer to do, which would be much more efficient. But it can be done, and I've reached out to Descript to see if they'll improve it. So far, I haven't heard back from them, which is not unusual, because a lot of companies in the tech field like them, they don't really have a huge tech team, and communicating with them can often be challenging. I'm starting to learn that the best way to communicate with these companies is to tag them on a LinkedIn or a Facebook post.
Yeah.
They seem to see those. They seem to see those much better than they do emails or direct messages.
Yeah, which is kind of strange, that they would see those stuff more than they see their own internal support stuff.
Yeah. They're just lucky that my approach to accessibility is positive and non-threatening.
Yeah, not fire for fire.
that when I post on LinkedIn complaining about something, it doesn't really sound like I'm complaining. It sounds like I'm making a
Yeah.
helpful suggestion, and
Like you're
that
giving constructive feedback instead of
yes,
tearing
and
them down.
I'm trying to help them reach a larger audience by making their product more accessible and more user friendly to everybody else. So yeah, I always couch my first post in very positive terms, and I feel like that's one of the reasons why accessibility hasn't been embraced more by companies, because too many people in the disability community, when they reach out to a company, they go at them with fear. They threaten them with regulations. They tell them if they don't do what they want done in the exact way they want it done and done by yesterday, that there's going to be a negative social media campaign, or there's going to be a lawsuit, or there's going to be a referral to a regulatory body. Because in some countries, I'm not familiar with Nigeria, but I know in the European Union, they just passed a new law called the European Accessibility Act, where you can actually refer somebody for a review under the new law, and they can be punished financially for not making the effort to be accessible. So, well,
Yeah.
but I feel like, too many people focus on fear. And so when I reach out to people or when I post on social media, I always do it from a positive, non-threatening position. And I have never told a business owner or a customer service or user experience team, I have never told a single one of them how they should solve my problem. I always say, look, this is what I'm trying to do. This is the software I am using. These are some ideas I have. I would love for us to have a conversation and figure out the best way to solve this problem so that I and other people like me can use your website, your product, your service, etc. So that's how I approach people.
I mean, for me, reaching out to technology companies, one of the things I hate the most is not getting to hear back from them. And I understand that they have a lot of team on their hand. Once in a while, I see some tech companies that I reach out to them, and before I finish typing the message me back. And sometimes they don't solve my problem, but it's nice to see that somebody's actually over there, getting your message, hearing you talk, and maybe complain or even cry about about what the frustration or whatever you're going through. No, it's
Yeah.
nice to know that someone is listening. That for me,
Yeah.
every time I see a company that does that, they just stand out, and I'm like, I pay attention.
Exactly. They stand out. They're memorable. They have made a connection with you by doing nothing more than what we used to consider the minimum standard. Just
Yeah,
think
yeah.
about that for a minute. So here's what I really love is not only when I get a reply back, but when the reply actually shows that they listen to my message and they have some interest or care about the subject. So like just this week, I reached out to a company they've started a new offer to help people upgrade their Mac hardware in a way that is easier and much less expensive than purchasing a brand new unit at one time, which I feel like would be a great help to people with disabilities, because if we could purchase a new iPhone or a new MacBook and pay $30, $40, $50 a month, as opposed to having to raise the entire cost of a MacBook right away, that would be a big thing. So I emailed them and I mentioned accessibility on their site. I also mentioned credit acceptance process, because they are using a third party business to make decisions on whether or not people are a good risk. And the guy did not just respond to my comments about accessibility, and he admitted that they need to make big improvements, especially for screen readers and screen magnifiers. But the thing that really got me was when he said, the whole thing about credit is really a problem. He said, because we understand that credit rating often has nothing to do with somebody's ability to pay for something they really need.
Yeah. Well,
And him understanding that people with disabilities are often not considered good risks simply because of their disability was something that really got to me. So, it's like you say, it's great when you get a reply. It's even better when you get a reply that shows some thoughtfulness about the subject and what you said in your message.
yeah. I mean, the bar is just so low that if just getting a reply is considered as a win. Yeah.
Well, you know what I say about bars is because even now there are people who underestimate me and other people like me. And I like to say the great thing about a low bar is it doesn't take me much to jump over it. Or what I'm more likely to say is I don't mind them underestimating me because it makes it easier for me to impress them.
Yeah. So true. Just to be clear, your accessibility podcast, which that has been active for now, you the one who do the editing.
Yeah, but I don't do a lot of it because I'm not good at it. Even with software, I'm not good at it. It takes me longer than it should. So my goal is to edit out the worst so that people can enjoy listening or watching and listening to what I have to share with them. Because if I get real deep into editing, what's going to happen is I'm going to get tired and I'm going to get frustrated and I'm not going to release the content. And I can't educate anybody if I never release it. I can't entertain or inspire if I never release it. So my default position is I'm very good at getting to good enough. I've rarely ever had trouble with perfection when it comes to my online content. In fact, when my first website was all about brokering used carnival rides and amusement park equipment. And on that website, for the first 5 years, that website was very bright because of some bad color choices. The images on the website would be of different sizes because I had no way to edit the images people were sending me of their equipment. But I did the best I could do with the website, and I promoted the available equipment. And because I focused on what I could do something about at the time, I sold rides on 5 continents back when that was my primary focus of brokering used amusement equipment. So I've really never had trouble with the whole idea of perfection. I think it's because I can't see my online content. So I just don't obsess over it the way other people do. I can hear my podcast content, but even that, like I sincerely meant it when I said, if I do too much editing or if I try to do too much editing, then I get stuck and I don't release. And in fact, even now, the What's Your Excuse podcast is what I like to call recorded live. So in the description, before they get to the YouTube and Blueberry podcast player windows on a post, I have 2 disclaimers. The first one is I love to sing, and so I am singing on the intro of this podcast. The second disclaimer is I stink at editing, so this podcast is recorded live in the same way that television was recorded live in the 50s.
Yeah.
And then, I put those 2 disclaimers, and people are like, that's cool because, maybe if I didn't try to edit, I might actually have a podcast. So
it's back to the idea of what's your excuse. A lot of persons they say, oh, I will start a podcast, can I edit and stuff like that. And for me, I'm like, I believe that when there's a way, there's a way. I'm like, if you want to learn this stuff, the technology has gotten so good in terms of the UX UI has gotten so good and easy for people that are not technical. That you can, if you want to learn this stuff, you can learn it, right? And yet they're like, oh, I'm not good enough. I can't do it. And I'm like, and at that point in time, it's just the excuse speaking, because then when you look for something to say, okay, this is the reason why I'm not doing it. Now, of course, some certain times there might be legit reasons, but even then, if we really want to do something, sometimes we'll find a way to go over those legit reasons and get those stuff done.
Right. One of the things I like to talk to about with podcasters or people that are stuck not releasing their podcast is this is your thing. You get to decide how you do it. And you never want to make a decision based on what you should or should not do, based on what other people are telling you should or should not do, whether those people are people you know personally or people you follow online. This is your thing, and you get to decide how you do it. So, for example, if you don't want to have audio and have a podcast hosting thing, then you don't have to do audio. Maybe you do just video. Maybe you do just live and you don't record it and put it where somebody can listen to it later. You get to pick the name, and you can change the name. You can change the description. You can change your artwork. Basically, you can change pretty much anything about a podcast as you figure out what you like best about it. So it's a very personal thing. And even the way you record your content is all personal. Hey, if you only have access to an iPhone or an Android phone, or even an older flip phone that can record short videos, or maybe you got a digital camera. Whatever you have available to you, if you can get comfortable recording yourself using that device, then that's where you start.
Yeah.
As you mentioned with the software, some of the hardware, even in countries where hardware like that I take for granted is difficult to come by and expensive to purchase, the technology, even from a few years ago, is so good. You can find your way many ways to recording content to release in the form of a podcast or a video blog or whatever you want to call it. You can choose to edit or not edit. You can choose how much you want to edit. You can choose where to post your content, whether you want to have a website or use TikTok or Instagram or Facebook videos. Although I would recommend against Facebook videos because their new policy says they're only going to be up there for 90 days or 30 days or something. So might not want to go there anymore, but these are all your personal decisions. And so please don't let yourself get overwhelmed by the decisions. Please just start where you are, do what you can to do today and get better as you go along. Don't let the experts scare you as far as what kind of technology you have to have, where you want to post your content, what you want to call your show. As I mentioned with What's Your Excuse, it had 3 other names before we settled on What's Your Excuse. And it didn't have artwork until just a year and a half ago when a friend decided to volunteer to create a logo for it. And she went online and saw the work that I've been doing over the years, and she came back with a really cool logo. I don't know if you've seen it or not, but basically there's a globe, and then in front of the globe there are parts of buildings, and then in front of that there's a silhouette of me wearing a cane and wearing a cape and holding my white cane. And then across the chest, it says the blind blogger, because even now doing accessibility, I'm still known as the blind blogger by most people. And then at my feet, like the old comic book words you used to see at the bottom of the page, it says, "What's your excuse?" So, but my podcast didn't have, it went through 3 different names. It didn't have a artwork of its own until a year and a half or so ago. So
Yeah.
start where you are, do what you can, try to overcome perfection. You know what the really cool thing about having a podcast is? The really cool thing about this whole process. People want real content. They want real people.
Yeah.
They don't want overproduced, glossy, flashy bells and whistles. They want real people telling real stories, giving real world advice that's actually been used by people struggling with something similar to what they're going through. They don't need or want the kind of podcasts that some people are worried that they're not going to be able to produce. They just want to connect with real people. And another thing people should know about my podcast besides the name is over the time since I began What's Your Excuse, I've gone from recording the video using the camera on my laptop, which means the camera was pointed up at my face, which is an angle nobody should ever record video at. Lighting was horrible. Eventually we got a USB camera that I could set on a shelf. So the camera got better, but the lighting was still bad. Then we had to work on the background. Thankfully, I got a newer computer so I could blur the background and didn't have to worry about that no more. Since then, one of the great things about working for AudioEye is they provided me with a new Link 360 camera, which does a pretty good job of keeping me in focus without me having to worry about it. They got me a new microphone. So I have better technology than I had when I started, but people didn't just start following me. They started following me in the very beginning because, hey, it's a blind guy, and yeah, he's making a lot of mistakes, but he's trying. He's overcoming excuses. He's overcoming challenges we don't have and have no idea of how we would live with if we did have them. And one of my favorite pieces of content was when I finally decided that I was willing to accept that I inspire people by the work I've done and started the second website as the Blind Blogger. I recorded a video, and the video was titled, "I Think I'm Ready to Be an Inspiration." Okay. So I record this video. I have only limited light perception. I can only tell you if my lighting is on or not if I look directly at where it's located when I press the button or flip the switch. So I recorded this video not knowing that my lights were out and that the only light I had was a little bit coming through Venetian blinds on off to my one side. I'm so happy I posted it and people started responding to it. And
Wow.
I got two kinds of responses, okay? And this is a great lesson because you are going to get people who just love to point out stuff that they think is wrong. So about 1 out of 3 people that watched that video said, Max, this is horrible. It looks like you're recording this from a cave. You need to take this down and do it over. That was 1 out of 3. The other 2 out of 3 were like, Max, this is such a great metaphor. We can just see how the blind guy is going to lead us out of darkness into the light. You're going to help us overcome all those dark places we've been in and overcome our... And so the people that wanted to see it positively did. And so that video is still up on my website. I have never taken it down because I see no reason to take it down. It serves a great message. Plus, I get to use it when I'm doing public talks on podcasting or inspiration. So this is the way the world works. Here's the thing I always go to in my own mind when I do occasionally struggle with releasing something, like I did with my most recent song, Don't Wait on Someday. When I get to the point where I have trouble just going ahead and pressing publish or pressing send, I tell myself, Max, you have to give them the opportunity to find something to love.
Yeah.
And that's the way it is with our podcast. If we give them the opportunity, the vast majority of people will either listen a little and then go on to something else, or they will listen and they will find something they like. But they can only do that if we put our content out into the world where they can find it, see it, listen to it, enjoy it, be affected by it. So we have to give people the opportunity to find something to love, whether that's as a podcaster, a singer, a songwriter, a filmmaker, an author, an artist, whatever you do creatively, you have to give them the opportunity to find something to love in what you do.
Yeah, thank you so much, Max. Like I right now, I feel inspired, honestly, and this is not me trying to be nice to my guests. I feel really inspired because the funny thing is, most of the things we were talking about are some of the excuses that's just popping up in my head. I'm like, whoa. So I'm my biggest enemy, right? It's strange, but I'm my biggest enemy. I'm the person who is working day and night to stop myself. And I'm a question I think I'll be more intentional about getting out of my way and making progress. Thank you so much for sharing.
Well, I appreciate it. And I'm going to say something about podcasting and podcasters here because of your comment. I find that in general, we are heart-centered people, are helpful, considerate. We want to see the other person succeed to find satisfaction and happiness if possible. Podcasters, bloggers, any type of creative person online, we are usually the first to help someone who is struggling with challenges around creating their content. And I have said this, and I'm going to keep saying it because it's the truth. If more people knew how supportive the online communities are for creators, everybody would have a blog or a podcast.
Yeah.
You know, we build people up. We go from learning to sharing to teaching and back again to learning all the darn time. And so we are very supportive. So I'm not surprised that you found something good in what I said today. And I had no doubt it was sincere because that's just how most of us are.
Yeah, thank you so much for coming on the podcast, for putting yourself out there. I mean, if you didn't feel like you had something to say for an interview, probably, even though I reached out to you, probably won't be having this conversation right now.
Right. Well, I love having these conversations. I love making new connections while I'm talking about things that interest both of us. I will say this, because of your schedule, we started recording this at 11:15 p.m. my time. And
11:15 p.m.
we're gonna finish after midnight. So if I didn't know that I had something to say, and if I didn't know that you have an audience that I value and that hopefully will get something positive out of me having this conversation, I sure as heck wouldn't have put myself here at 11:15 at night. So But that's what we do as podcasters. I tell this to people who want to be guests, and especially quite often the best way to get on shows you really want to get on, shows that are difficult, shows that have waiting lists, is make yourself available, accommodate their schedule, let them know you'll show up last minute if that's what they need. So, this is what I do. If I have to be awake in the middle of the night to share my knowledge, experience, and to inspire others, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it because, one, I have learned that I have an obligation to people out there to show up and to continue to be an example, to encourage them in their own lives. And the other thing is I just straight up enjoy it. I
Yeah.
have fun. Whenever I sit down and press record or connect with somebody, I have fun because to me, this is an experience. This is an adventure. This is a curiosity. It's you never know who you're going to meet, where the conversation is going to go, or what you are going to learn. And that's the one last thing I will say about being podcast guest is if you go on podcasts over time and you don't learn or relearn things about yourself, then you're doing it wrong.
Yeah, so true. Well, where can listeners learn more about you, check your stuff out, and your podcast? And it would be nice if you could mention and name your kind of like call the names of your podcast again. Yeah.
Sure. So if they go to theblindblogger.net, they can find What's Your Excuse, which is inspirational interviews. If they go to theaccessibilityadvantage.com, they can find the Accessibility Advantage, which is tutorials on accessibility as well as interviews with business people who have embraced accessibility to their benefit. And then as far as Hearsay Shorts, I'm going to have to send you a link to them because that podcast is not posted on either one of my websites. But I have done some great interviews with them. I'm very proud of that work. And naturally, since they support me financially, I would like to see them continue to have a presence online. So I will send you a link to them, but it's called Hearsay Shorts if y'all want to do a search for it in YouTube or on Apple or Spotify. So those are the podcasts. The main thing that I'm wanting people to go to now, and I'm working to combine all my stuff into one website eventually. Everything's going to be under Max Ivy or MaxwellIvy.com. I haven't got there yet. So for now, people should go to the accessibilityadvantage.com. If there's something I spoke about here that you can't find and you're like, Max, where do I find X? Just send me a quick email. I'll be more than happy to answer any questions you may have, regardless of the difficulty, and send you any links that you might need to make this as easy as possible for you to find the inspirational or educational content you need in your day.
Thank you so much once again, Max, for coming on the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. This has been a true joy.
That's it for today's episode of my podcast story. I am Wisdom Okonkwo, and I hope this conversation sparked new ideas and gave you a deeper look into the heart of podcasting. If you've loved this episode, consider supporting the show by buying me a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/wisdomhq. Every bit helps keep the stories going. And hey, don't forget to follow, rate, and share this podcast with another podcaster or creator who would find it helpful. Thanks again for listening, and I'll catch you in the next episode.